You've written 6 books about flow and peak performance. How would you say your last book, Nar Country, which launches tomorrow, is different than the rest?
The Nar Country is about peak performance aging. It does talk a little bit more about flow. It's different in that it's very much focused on applied peak performance and applied peak performance aging. Most of my books have talked about flow as an engine for peak performance. Here we look at one of flow's other sort of major roles in our lives as one of the engines of adult development. Flow helps us grow up. It's part of the mechanism which drives us through adulthood. So I haven't really written a lot about that or talked a lot about that because it hasn't sort of fit the books I've been writing about flow. So I get to talk about those roles a little differently in this one.
Fantastic. And then Dr. Jason, you started Theragon 17 years ago. What was the motivation for that?
Yeah, Theragon is percussive therapy. The way I discovered it is I'm a chiropractor in Los Angeles. I was on a motorcycle on the freeway splitting traffic as you do in LA, and the car cut me off and I T-boned the side of this Volkswagen head first. I ended up having a lot of soft tissue damage in my neck, down and through my arm. And what I was doing is looking for something that I could take with me to my house, on the road, in the car, something that was, let alone fit in my car, but maybe even my backpack. So I sort of ran into this situation where I was like, you know what, I've got to either get surgery, take medications, and I didn't want either one of them. And I discovered sort of what vibration does to the pain in my body by sitting on a vibrating table in my practice. And that just led down this path of finding a tool that vibrated, that pulled against my body, and then realizing the vibration wasn't strong enough. So I created Theragon in 2007, and it's been amazing ever since.
Very fantastic. Steven, your 11 rules from Nar Country that allows anyone to do the impossible, as you say, after 50 years old. I want to start with Dean, because Dean is still running 100-mile races at age 60, which just absolutely blows me away. The first rule is train like a pro. Dean, how do you train? Can you just give us some insight into what you do to be able to not just run 100 miles, but actually race 100 miles more than one time this year?
Yeah, I look at myself through the lens of being the best animal that I can be. And everything I do revolves around that. So my training, obviously, my cross training, my diets, my interpersonal relationships, and my sleep. So all of those things I try to maximize and optimize to be the best animal I can be. I do a lot of smart training. So I use something called an elliptigo, which is an elliptical bike, so that I can get my heart rate up, but I don't pound my joints the way running does. And I also run primarily on the trails. So on a softer surface, I try to avoid man-made surfaces as much as possible.
So Steven, I think Dean has tapped into the 11 rules of your book in order to do what he's doing. You know, what amazed me when I was reading parts of the book, Steven, is you were saying that you can actually increase some of your brain benefits as you age. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And what are those things that actually get better as we age?
So the old idea about aging is the long, slow rot theory. It's our bodies and our brains decline over time. There's nothing we can do to stop the slide. And it didn't start to wobble until the late 90s. But now there's holes in that theory. And the new theory is all the skills we used to think decline over time, they do decline over time, but we now know they're all use it or lose it skills. And if you continue to train these skills, we can hold on to them, even advance them far later in life than anybody thought possible. And I think, by the way, having Dean here is a great example. Dean will tell you, if you talk to Dean about distance running, that 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds are beating 40-year-old and 50-year-olds in some of the longer distance races, and have been for a little while, which is one part of that. There's brain changes that happen in our 50s, and we gain new levels of intelligence, creativity, empathy, and wisdom that were not available before, which makes us better, smarter animals as well.